We've brought together some incredible women, thought leaders who are writing our playbooks, teaching us how to level up our careers, how to advocate for ourselves, and basically how to be a baller. So please welcome to the stage Jenny Galluzzo, who's going to be moderating for us, along with Annie Wang, Tiffany Dufu, Catherine Minshew, and Bonnie Fuller.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a panel about the ask. Whether you're asking for a raise, or you're asking for a promotion, or you're asking for mentorship, we are talking about how to advocate for yourself and become the baller that you all want to be. So my name's Jenny Galluzzo, and with my partner, Gina Hadley, we have a company that we created called The Second Shift. And we provide a platform for women to find high-level, flexible work opportunities. And it's a solution for companies to retain and attract critical female voices in the workforce. So it's an honor to get the opportunity to talk to all of these visionary business women, and we're going to talk strategies for getting ahead and rising to the top. So to start off, I think it's easiest if you guys introduce yourselves, give a quick intro on who you are, what you do, and then we've got lots of questions, and we want to open this up for Q&A to the audience to ask these experts what you think and how to get ahead. Go ahead, Annie.
Awesome. Hi, guys. I am Annie Wang, and I'm the co-founder, chief product officer, and creative director of Her Campus Media, and we are the #1 brand for the empowered college women. So we provide a career launching platform for the world's top student journalists who are interested in getting jobs in journalism, media, and marketing after college. And on the business side, we connect the world's top brands and companies to these ambitious young women. At Her Campus, I'm obviously one of the co-founders, and I am in charge of all things creative, strategy, and technical. So excited to chat with you all.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tiffany Dufu. My life's work is advancing women and girls. That's pretty much why I'm on the planet. I'm the author of a book called Drop the Ball, Achieving More by Doing Less, and I think we're signing books later this afternoon. I'm also the founder of a new company called The Crew, because every woman needs a crew. So hopefully you can check that out at findyourcrew.com. Thanks.
I'm Catherine Minshew, really excited to be here today, so thanks for having me on the panel. I am the founder and CEO of a company called The Muse, which is a career platform that helps people research companies and careers and connect with fascinating opportunities across a wide variety of spectrums. So we are based here in New York City, about 120 or so employees, and we help 50 million people and hundreds of companies sort of making that connection. So I'm very excited by and sort of embedded in the world of work and excited to talk more with all of you guys.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Fuller. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of HollywoodLife.com, which is a digital destination for young women, and we are a news site. We do all kinds of entertainment, celebrity, women's issue news, and we've grown to about 20 million monthly uniques. I wasn't always in the digital world. I love being in the digital world because we can be completely up to date in covering all of the news that all of you get excited about and have a need to know immediately. We just launched our app last week, so you can download that on the App Store. Little plug. But I started my career in newspapers and was a reporter, and then was a magazine editor-in-chief for YM, and I launched Marie Claire, and then I did Cosmopolitan, Glamour, and Us Weekly. So I've made a transition, as my former magazine colleagues would say, over into the dark side. But I love it.
Thank you, guys. So I want to start with Catherine. So The Muse. The Muse provides jobs, career advice, courses for a largely millennial audience. And I am not a millennial audience, and the women that we work with are an older age bracket. And I'm just wondering, what is a piece of advice that you wish you had when you were entering the workforce if you were one of your own readers?
That's a great question. I wish that I had taken it a little bit easier on myself. I think there's a lot of pressure when you're getting started in your career to optimize for everything, to have the best learning experience and a great job that you're proud of in the perfect field with an amazing boss and making good money to boot. And most people don't have those things early on. And so I think that when I look back at the beginning of my career, the things that I learned the most from were where I let myself stretch out of my comfort zone and also where I wasn't afraid to fail. And now a big piece of the Muse's origin story is that I was turned down 148 times in the course of raising our seed round. And I mean, that was horrible, but I also learned that no doesn't kill you, which I think is not a lesson that I knew at the beginning of my career, and I wish I had gotten that advice from somebody.
I love that advice. No does not kill you. I think that, flipping everything and turning a negative into a positive is just a really good way to go into your career in an optimistic and confident way. And Annie, you talk to women with Her Campus when they are in college, maybe they're in internships or they're first out of college, which is something I just really wish existed when I was in college, because I feel like I would have made so many fewer mistakes than I did. So congratulations, and too bad for me. So what's the most popular or frequently asked question that you get through Her Campus?
Yeah, I think this is a big one. So by far the most popular question, like hottest topic that college students want to know about is mentorship. And I know that's going to be a theme of this discussion, but college students are wondering, there's so much talk about finding a mentor. How do you actually go about doing that? And how do you cultivate a healthy and productive mentor relationship? So that's one of the things that we talk about on Her Campus. So we provide content on everything that college women want to know about to really level up in their life in every single aspect. And mentorship is one of those things that can start early. So it's something that, as a college student, you can develop connections with your professors and make sure that you take every internship and every opportunity seriously, because those are the people that might turn into lifelong mentors for you. And I think in terms of making the ask, which is what people are so afraid of sometimes, you really need to identify what it is that you're bringing to the table so that it's not just a one-sided ask. Because a lot of the people that you're going to be asking to be a potential mentor are super busy, and so many people are asking that same question. So what sets you apart? Is there something that you can offer as part of that relationship? I think that, personally, as somebody who gets cold emailed a lot with this request, it always makes a difference if somebody says something like, hey, I saw you speak at this event, or I read this article that you were mentioned in, and this is something specific that I can offer to connect with you. So even when you don't have that personal connection, try to set yourself apart from just the random everyone that's trying to email this person. So my advice would just be to start early and just think carefully about what this relationship is going to be. Try to set expectations of what it is you're looking for and what your potential mentor might be able to provide you, so it's not so out of the blue. So try to contextualize it if at all possible.
Well, luckily Tiffany's up next, because you are somebody who has actively had mentors in your life that have been able to advance your career, and you've been able to leverage those relationships, and now you're paying it forward for other women. So how have you been able to have the confidence to navigate that role with both mentors and mentees?
So first I want to say that this advice that you just received was really important, and I was able to implement this advice earlier today. I had a lunch with Gayle King. It was the first time that I had ever met her. Of course, there are a gazillion things that I would want to ask of Gayle King, but my primary question that I was trying to figure out was, what could I do for her? And so I asked her, and it turns out that she does have a pain point. She has a difficult time finding really dynamic women who are writers and producers. So if any of you are a writer or a producer in TV or in magazines and you want an opportunity, please see me afterward, because I have a job for you.
Wow,
with Gayle.
that's awesome.
With Gayle King. So I am the cumulative investment of a lot of women who have poured themselves into me. When people say I'm having a hard time, finding a mentor, the first question I always ask is, who are you mentoring? And in that vein, I just want to give a shout out to two of the women in the room who I'm investing in. One is Jordan Forney, who is at Flatiron Books. Stand up. She's a superstar. She's in publishing, so if any of you are interested in books, you should definitely see her. And is Minda here? Minda Hartz. There she is right here. She runs a really amazing organization for women called The Memo. So particularly if you're a woman of color, you should definitely see Minda. It's so much easier for you to secure investment on behalf of yourself when you're pouring yourself into other people. And the first thing that I would say if you're looking for a mentor is, number one, be the kind of leader that people want to pour themselves into and that they want to invest in. First of all, know what you stand for. Okay? My life's work is advancing women and girls. When someone makes an investment in Tiffany, they know that the world is going to get a return on the investment, not just themselves. So have something that's really clear that you stand for, so that when people invest in you, they know that they're investing in something that's even greater than you. I would say number two, follow up with people. And don't feel bad and don't beat yourself up if you don't do this right away. It is never too late to follow up with someone. But one of the things that really helps for people to stand out with me is when they just ping me back and say, remember 3 months ago, a year ago, seriously, don't feel bad about how much time has gone by when you gave me the advice about X, Y, or Z. Do I remember? No, I don't remember. I give so much advice. But that brings them, front and center. I just wanted to express gratitude. Here is the result of me implementing that advice. I have another question for you. If you do that 3 times with the same person, ask them for advice, then go back to them and give them an update and do that 3 times, they will start imagining you and thinking of you as a superstar. You can follow people on social. Minda is great at this. Follow people on social and help to promote what they're doing and their content. But at the end of the day, I think this is the best advice, to really have clarity about what you can offer and how you can support other people.
Great advice. So changing courses a little bit. Bonnie, your career has had dizzying highs and successes, and I really admire your ability to change and adapt as the media landscape changed around you. And I'm wondering how you think of the skills that you possess as a leader that have enabled you to navigate that. What skills are necessary today to be able to rise up, pivot, change, move, grow? And do you think it's the same from when you started working as it is now, those skills?
That's a really good question. I do think that there are qualities that you have when you start your career that will grow with you and that will help you navigate no matter what happens. And I think that a lot of those things are personality traits that you yourself can develop. First of all, you've got to be prepared to work really hard, work above and beyond what you thought you might have to do. There's always going to be competition to get jobs you want, to get readers you want, and so in order to stand out, you are always going to have to do a better job, create better content, connect better with your readers than other people. And that quality of wanting to work hard, not thinking of whatever you are doing as being a shift or you've had enough of it at the end of a certain amount of time, I think will carry you through for long term, like for your life. Like ideally what you are doing in your life is something that you're really passionate about. You should love what you're doing. And so you should want to be able to work hard and to be determined and persistent. And I say persistent because one of the things that I've discovered over the years is that life is long and careers are long, probably longer than you think when you're just starting out. And this world just keeps changing so much. And when I was starting out, I can tell you, I never thought that newspapers and magazines were going to be going away and that there would be a thing called the internet. Like, I'm that old. There was no internet. There was, when I used to work for the Toronto Star, I was a fashion writer, and I'd come to New York and I would cover the fashion shows here, and it was not like Fashion Week, what it is today. It was in these little showrooms. I'd have to run back to my hotel room, type up my story, go to go to Times Square where there was, what would you call it? It was like the telegraph office. Like literally they telegraphed my copy in. And that wasn't that long ago, but the world has changed. And so you have to be able to adapt. And so I worked hard and I achieved these editor-in-chiefdoms, and it was incredible and exciting. But I could see at my last position, I was overseeing, as editorial director at American Media, overseeing a lot of magazines and websites, and I just started to see that all of a sudden, our sales, our newsstand sales were going down and down and down, and people were going to our websites, and my daughters didn't want to read my magazines anymore. And so I realized that I was going to have to learn a whole new skill set, and I was going to have to convince people that I could go into the digital world. And I couldn't, I could barely type. I mean, I typed on typewriters. When I grew up, that's all I knew. And so I think the ability to be open to change and to learning more, no matter how far along you get in your life and your career, and as you said, not being afraid of no, because when I was going out and trying to launch Hollywood Life, it was the Great Recession, and nobody wanted to launch anything to do with women, let alone media. And the fact that it was media made it even was like kryptonite. You didn't want to touch it. And so it was so depressing for a year of no's before I finally met Jay Penske, the CEO of Penske Media, and he partnered with me on this. And so being persistent, being willing to change, and then I had to go back to kind of doing all kinds of things that I didn't have to do when I was an editor-in-chief. I won't go into all the things, but you have to be prepared to go kind of backwards and start writing everything yourself and editing everything yourself. And I had moved past that, but I didn't mind doing it because I was passionate and I wanted to make that change. So you need to be prepared to not say, well, I've gotten to this part of my life, I don't have to do those things anymore, and do them again. And it's worth it.
So what is the best piece of advice that you have for people out there who are looking to ask for a promotion or a raise but are afraid to ask? What would you tell somebody? You're all business leaders. What would you tell the people who are working for you to give them the confidence to be able to do that?
I would tell them two things. Both came from my parents. The first is a really important lesson, that if you want something you've never had before, you're going to have to do something that you've never done before in order to get it, right? So you're going to have to put yourself out there and take a risk. But the second thing that I would say is what my mother used to tell me every single day when I was growing up, and by the time I was an adolescent, I was so annoyed by it. She would say every day, Tiffany, you are so smart. You are so loved. You are so beautiful. And the reason why I would tell them that is because so often I know when I get really down or defeated or I'm afraid of something, I can hear her voice ringing in my ear. And it often does give me the centership to just know that I can do it.
Does anybody else want to chime in on that?
Sure. I would love to give some really tactical, practical things for me. So I started my business when I was in college, so I never had a boss. But I've always been on the other side of the table. So over the years, I think 3 things have really stood out to me. First thing is to prove yourself before you're asking for something like a raise or a promotion. You obviously don't need to be doing that job fully yet, but you should be inspiring the confidence that you can do that. So I wouldn't make an ask that you know that you can't back up. Prove yourself, prove that you are someone who is indispensable, somebody who is critical to sort of the smooth running of the organization, and I think it's gonna be an easy yes. The second thing I would do is obviously do your research and be prepared. This is not a conversation that you wanna wing. But when you're having that conversation, sometimes I get people who are so rehearsed because they have thought about it so much that they're not hearing what I'm saying, right? So this is a conversation. This is not like an opportunity for you to do a monologue at your boss or your supervisor. So I would just like remember that that conversation is just like any conversation you're having with your boss. And it's something that, you know, they need to take in what you're saying, and it's probably going to evolve after a couple follow-up conversations. It's not necessarily going to happen right then and there. And then the last thing that I would say is simply just to be prepared and to go in there like knowing what you want, because sometimes what can be the most off-putting is when we have the same conversation at like 6 months and then at 9 months and then at the year. So if you are prepared with what you want initially, you can have that conversation once and have an understanding of, okay, this is where I'm gonna be a year from now. This is when I can expect something to happen, instead of like bringing up that same conversation, which becomes a sore subject. So it's better to negotiate hard up front and both sort of be on the same page than to continue to bring something up and continue to settle for something that you don't want and just bring it up over and over again to the point that it becomes a sore subject between you guys. So those would just be 3 really practical things.
No, I first of all, I love all the advice that's been shared on this point, and I think 2 other quick notes. One is I find it's helpful to give the person you're asking a sort of soft heads up, meaning email and say, hi, I'd really like to set up some time to talk about my career. Actually, if you go on the Muse, we have a couple of like templates for emails if you search salary negotiation, but just giving people a little bit of a heads up that you want to set aside specific time to talk more about your career, that can put them in the right mood. If you go into a regular one-on-one and kind of have the conversation and they're not expecting it, they may be mentally somewhere else and you're not necessarily going to get the best response. Secondly, I would think if you are in a position where you suspect that your company might not be able to give you the raise that you want to ask for, that you feel you deserve, it can be helpful to be creative. I have a close friend who worked at a large nonprofit that had very specific rules around when raises were allowed, and they weren't able to give her the raise, but she ended up negotiating a $6,000 travel and professional development budget, which she was able to use that year to take classes, attend conferences, and do things that were incredibly exciting for her, and that her employer was more than willing to pay for, but that was sort of a trade-off that in her situation felt fair, given that they had these rules around salary. And then the last thing I would say is, again, ask yourself what's the worst that could happen. The first time that I ever negotiated for a salary, I was very nervous, and it was a phone conversation because my boss was in a different country than I was, and I got a no. And I was so uncomfortable that, actually I didn't get a no on the call, I got a we'll think about it. And I was so uncomfortable and nervous that I hung up the phone and ran to the toilet and threw up. So that was really glamorous. I didn't end up getting the raise, but you know what? I asked thoughtfully, I was very prepared, it was a good conversation, and I didn't die, the sky didn't fall, and so I'm really glad I asked, and I got a little bit more savvy after that about how to negotiate and how to do it authentically, in a way that felt natural and effective for me.
Okay, I have one more question before we have to go to Q&A, and I just really want to get your take on it. So I recently read this article about women having a hard time asking other women to do them a favor. And the idea is that if you ask somebody for a favor, or are on the other end of that for a business connection or for mentorship or for any number of things, that it puts people on either side in a bad place, and that women really are holding each other back because they are either don't want to be asked or they are asked. And I've had that experience, I kind of have to say, earlier in my career, where I asked, but then when I think back on it, I didn't really ask the right way. It wasn't confident. I didn't ask for what exactly I wanted. I was sort of waiting for somebody to offer to help me instead of me putting out exactly what I wanted from them. And it caused friction in that relationship and left me disappointed. So that's my experience. But I'm just wondering if you have had that experience with other women or friends, colleagues, where you felt either disappointed or you felt put out by them asking you something.
I think that in general that women have had a harder time, I guess, developing what you would call a girls' club. I mean, we all hear about the boys' club, and you do see that men are very comfortable giving references for each other, recommending each other for jobs, and they think that's completely fine. And I just think that it is something that is still developing among women. I think that we tend to see each other as competitive, and I think that that's a long history, centuries, thousands of years. I don't know why, but let me step back just for a sec, because I think one of the things that happens a lot in work environments, and it's part of the advice that we were giving before, is that I think that what you should do is look to your women bosses as mentors. Like, don't look at every woman, you can look at men too, but when you are already in a job, I think that there is your most obvious start to find a mentor. You do a fabulous job for the person that you work for, and you learn how to ask them for things. They learn how to be comfortable asking you to, if they need you to do something that's above and beyond. They're comfortable, they know that you'll do that. You can ask them for whether it's a raise or you want more responsibility. Really try and develop a mentor relationship with who you're actually working for, and don't think about every place as just a stepping stone that, well, I'll be here for a little while and then I'll use it to jump to something else. No, look at everybody that you work for as somebody who you could know for the rest of your career, and that you could ask for advice, you could ask for a new opportunity within your organization, and they will support you. They will become your promoter. And I think that I have a lot of young women employees, and I don't see that most of them come into the workplace understanding that. The professional world is not that big. Like, you may think New York City is a big place, the world's a big place, but industries actually aren't that big, and so you make a great impression. That person you work for is going to become your biggest PR person, and if they move up the ladder, they'll take you with. However, you do the opposite thing, you don't do a great job, you leave, let's say you leave, you don't give proper notice, that spreads. Like, you've lost the opportunity to have somebody say wonderful things and recommend you for the rest of your professional career. So I'm kind of cramming a lot of stuff in, but look at your boss. When there's any of these ladies or anyone you work for as a mentor, an opportunity to be your PR person.
I was just going to say, I think that the article is actually on point with what you were trying to say. The Crew is a peer coaching service for women, and the way that it works is that you apply to become a member of the Crew, and then we match you with 9 other women in your city, and the 10 of you collaborate to ensure each other thrive and that you meet your life goals. And the number one reason why, when women apply, they say that they're applying, is because they're entering a relationship with women knowing that the purpose is to help one another, and knowing that the context is one in which they can ask for help. But the number one thing, it always makes me cry when women are like, I need help, but they don't know how to ask for it, because how does it feel when you are able to help someone? When someone asks something of you or they don't, and you're able to make an introduction or to support them in their leadership or in their life, you usually feel amazing that you were able to do that. And I think it's really important that we remember that we're depriving other people of that very same feeling when we don't allow them the opportunity to support us, and to also keep in mind that the vulnerability that comes with asking for help is precisely what can lead to a deeper, stronger, more meaningful relationship with other people.
I would totally echo everything that's been said, and I think it's so important that as women we work together. I think often when you're asking for something, what you realize happens in the end is actually that, you help, or somebody helps you, you help them, and then you guys actually rise together, and together you're stronger than if you did it on your own, because they're probably providing something that you weren't able to achieve on your own. So this is something that I've encountered. It can be competitive in workplaces, but it's always better to adopt a more collaborative approach and think about the ways that, them helping you and you helping them is going to actually achieve your goals better. And then the last thing I would say on this point is just similar to what I said about mentorship. Like, think about when you're making an ask, like why you're making that ask, and if you can kind of justify that a little bit to that person you're asking. One of the things that's my pet peeve is when people do an email intro to me from somebody totally random without asking me first, and that totally is just such a pet peeve. I know. And so it's always better to think like, hey, I would really love an intro to this person. I would love to talk to them about this, and sort of like show how you're going to be providing value through that transaction, which will then get credited back to that person that you're asking.
I'm going to give one more piece of advice, is that if somebody does make a connection for you or does put themselves out, you have to remember to thank them. If somebody does something that goes out of their way and you've asked for that, and then you don't check in to tell them, oh, I actually had that phone call 2 weeks ago, that is just, you are never getting another introduction from that person. So that's just a quick little piece of advice. And now we'll open up the floor to questions from anyone who wants to ask from the panel. Yeah?
Hold on 1 second, there's a mic.
Okay, hello.
Hi.
Since I started blogging, I feel like a lot of friends that I thought were true friends kind of went to the wayside because we're no longer in alignment. And I kind of wanted to know, besides an event like this, where do you find mentors? Because it's been a struggle, and I run a women's page where I uplift people, but sometimes I don't know where to look for other uplifting women.
Tiffany.
Well, first of all, mentorship is, a mentor is just someone who helps you to achieve clarity through guidance and encouragement. And I give that definition as a much broader definition because it doesn't have to be necessarily someone who's in your industry. It needs to be someone who you can develop the kind of relationship with that they can tell you about yourself, right? And ask you the kinds of questions that you need to be asked in order to help you make the decisions that you need to make. So those people are everywhere. There is a prospective mentor in this room right now. So in effect, you're already doing, you're asking the question, but you're already here. And the fact that you're in this room means that you're seeking guidance, that you're seeking encouragement. So I encourage you to network in this very room. My email is tiffany@tiffanydufu.com. You can email me anytime, okay? And I will talk to you. That's easy. Ask and you shall receive.
Yeah, I would also,
Tiffany@tiffanydufu.com.
I'd also add that I think building a network of people that get you, people that are aligned with where your life is heading, it takes time. And as much as events like this aren't the end-all be-all, I think they're a really important starting point because, when I first got into tech and I went to startup events, it was a sea of dudes. It was like exclusively dudes. And, men can be great, and I had a lot of guys that were really helpful, but I was craving other women that were going through the things I was going through. And so I started seeking people out. Sometimes I would say, hey, I'm thinking of having 5 incredible women I met over to brunch at my place. Or we even did at one point a Google Hangout because there was a group of us that wanted to talk that were all in different cities. You can start to create that community, and I think that it is natural when you move into a new phase in your career that some of the people from earlier in your life stay with you, and some people move on different paths and you lose them. And I've just found that as much as it can be very tempting to sort of be all consumed by work, the time you put in building those relationships is massively impactful. And to the earlier question, if you can be as specific as possible as well about saying I want to help all of you all, and I want us to help each other, I think there's real power in that too. And join the crew.
I have a question right here.
Hello. Thank you guys so much. You guys, the work that you do is super admirable. I think I can say that for all of us. I have a question that is for everybody. When seeking a business mentor or even an investor, how do you know, what are the telltale signs? Because I know you guys have been there, done that. What are the telltale signs that truthfully they're just not interested? Because sometimes they are just busy and you have to be persistent. And then sometimes they really just not interested in your travel blog or whatever. What are those signs that okay, they don't want it, they're not interested?
So have you been out actually pitching, and what
I'm
responses?
preparing myself now.
Okay. Well, my experience was that when I would go and pitch, that they actually, the VCs or the investors, angel investors, that they were pretty straightforward. That they would usually be polite, hear me out, but then they would start with all of the questions and the reasons why it wouldn't work. And so that was a very clear indication that they were not interested. And the thing is that I would hear the exact same reasons, because there do tend to be, I think, trends in the investment world, like where everybody is excited about a certain topic or a certain business at this particular point, and so you start to hear repetition. And so I wouldn't beat yourself up about that, but I would accept it. You're not, that person or that group is not going to be right for you.
Right.
But you should take it in, because after hearing, let's say 3 or 4, and they're all giving you the same reasons, then you might want to do some research, because it might be that you are hitting your head against a brick wall, and you may have to pivot, and whether it's in your presentation or in your business plan, to take into account the kind of issues that they're bringing up, and then see if you pivot, if you get a better result. But if you passionately believe in what you're doing, keep at it.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have another question right here.
Thank you, Tiffany. Hi, Jen. My question is, it's more career related. So each of you have platforms, and we know that career development is not created equal for all women. So what are you doing to create intersectionality on your platforms?
I can speak for that. One of the ways in which we work is that we work with women. And we want to make sure that we are representative of lots of different diversity within the gender construct. So looking at race and sexuality and reaching out deeper into groups of people women of color, alumni networks, finding out that breaking out of our own networks, because once you are only talking to people who you know or who look like you're never going to reach farther and deeper into the audience that you want to find. And it just takes effort. It's easy to just ask 3 friends. It's a lot harder to go out and to try to make inroads into communities that you're not familiar with. But ultimately, that's the most important thing you can do. Otherwise, you're just talking within a vacuum.
Hi, we have a question to your left.
Hi, I'm Leslie from Mom's Hierarchy of Needs, and hello. I have a question for all of you. As you have become more senior and seasoned in your careers, how did you continue to make space for growth in your entrepreneurial and content creator life? I work in marketing and strategy and growth strategy by day and by night, but I'm also a freelance writer and advocate self-care for moms from my own website, and it's a lot. So I'd love to hear how you made the space to kind of continue on both paths.
You dropped the ball.
I was able to do it in full disclosure and honesty by working for a company that was very progressive and saw the work that I was doing outside of the company in building my own brand and in working on that side hustle as something that would be advantageous to the company. And a lot of companies aren't like that, and I'm very sensitive to that. I end up speaking to them and consulting with all of those companies and trying to convince them that, if someone has a passion project, you are best served by allowing them to fulfill that, and also figuring out ways that you can leverage that for your own brand. So, I would say that any kind of argument that you can make to whoever the higher ups are about how your work with Mom's Hierarchy is can actually add value to the bottom line, whether it's building a base of clients for your company, whether it's the experience that you're gaining and how you're bringing that to your day-to-day job, I think is really important, because otherwise you're either going to lead to burnout, or at some point Mom's Hierarchy is going to be, you know, its own empire and you'll be like, see ya, you know, at some point. But I think it's a really challenging dilemma.
Yeah, I would just add one other thing, which is something I still struggle with and is something I still need to work on too. But kind of taking control of your own schedule a little bit more and being proactive about how you use your time instead of reactive. We're all incredibly busy, and you can just be drowning in emails all day, for example, if you're just responding to emails as you get them. And so establishing simple rules for yourself, like a morning routine, like when you're checking your email. I've read that it's best to do it like on email sweep at the beginning of the day, like maybe at the lunch hour and at the end of the day, and not be just like constantly responding to your inbox throughout the day. So just like being a little bit more proactive and blocking aside time for yourself. For example, if you want to invest in professional development for yourself, actually scheduling that as like a 1.5 hour block for yourself, whether that's every week or every 2 weeks or whatever, but just being proactive instead of like reactive to the flood of what you're going to be encountering on a day-to-day basis.
I can speak to having a career and having a family, and how I think it's just really important that if you want to have a family as well as your career, that you can do it, know you can do it, and that you have to really give up something that I call perfection guilt, and also mommy guilt. And I just think that the time that, yes, I have 4 kids, and I learned, like, you cannot be perfect at everything. You certainly can't be perfect all the time, and you really have to look at what is really important for your kids. When is it really important that you're there? You have to remember that for most of the history of the entire world of human beings, that women did not have all day to sit on the floor and play with their kids. They were out in the fields, they were baking, they were washing clothes, like they were doing a million things, and they had their kids strapped on their back, or their kids would play around them. Like, you don't have to feel bad when you're at work that you're not there playing Lego with them. And as long as you are there, when you're there and you've got your time, that you really are focused and you figure out your work schedule so that you're home in the evenings or on the weekends when it's really important. So, and you don't have to worry about the dust balls under the bed. You just really have to kind of delegate for yourself, like what you really need to be there for, and focus your time at work. So when you're at work, you like just hardcore go in and don't waste time. But you have a book that you wrote called Drop the Ball. Just realize you're going to juggle constantly and you will be dropping balls, and it's okay.
Read Tiffany's book, it's awesome.
Yes. Your kids will come out okay, your work will be okay.
I have a question to the right.
Hi, so sort of to piggyback off that, clearly in order to advance in your career, you need to pick something and go after it. But what do you do when you just want to do so many things? I think as a creator, you know, we have so many passions. Like, I'm a journalist, I'm a blogger, I'm a fitness instructor, I want to have a nonprofit organization, and obviously I can't do it all at once, but my heart is in every single one of them. So how do you decide what you go after? Like, what do you choose? I mean, I love journalism, I love it, you know. I decide, oh my God, that's a great article to pitch to a magazine. But then the next day I'm like, oh my God, that's a great, you know, nonprofit thing I could come up with, charity work. And obviously it can't all get done. So how do you choose which one to go after?
What's your intention? Is the intention for money? Is the intention to do good into the world? You know, each of those things can do different things, and maybe based on what the actual intention that you have for the outcome of that project is going to set you on the course, because if you're doing something that doesn't align with that, then it's a waste of your time, and maybe that's a really good hobby for later once you've reached your goals.
I don't know if this is good advice for anyone else, but I mean, I could have said the exact same thing in terms of how I felt, 6 or 7 years ago, and I just did a little bit of a lot of things, and by doing them, one of them just reached up and grabbed me and wouldn't let go, and that was the one that I dropped everything else for. But I don't know if I could have made that choice at the beginning because I didn't know what I didn't know, and there's something about, I think, giving yourself the freedom to maintain a pretty broad set of activities and look for that pull that says, all I want to do is spend time on this. And if nothing's speaking to you in that way, maybe it's not a bad thing to continue to diversify, because some of my best ideas and experiences have come from that breadth, not the depth.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's time for us to wrap this up. I want to say thank you so much, Bonnie, Catherine, Tiffany, Annie. This was so much fun and really an enlightening conversation. Thank you for participating. Thank you to BlogHer and Chinos for having us, and look forward to the rest of the afternoon sitting in the audience instead of up here.